In this video, I'm going to show you how to do some simple analyses in SPSS. Now, I already have some numbers popped in right here, but I haven't explained what they are yet. And before I do, I want you to pause the video and enter in the same numbers into your own SPSS spreadsheet. So, these two variables represent gender and height. Variable 1 is people's gender information, and variable 2 represents people's height information. And instead of having to remember this, let's go into variable view immediately and give these variables better names. I'll call this one gender. I'll call this one height. Go back to data view, we'll see the names are already changed up in there. So the data for people's height are in inches. So we're seeing a range of heights from around 60 to 80 inches, which is about 5 to 7 feet. The other data are people's genders, but these values aren't quite as clear. I could just type in the words male and female as a string variable, but those aren't numbers, and SPSS needs numbers to analyze. So instead, I'm using a coding scheme of 1s and 2s, where 1 represents female and 2 represents male. Now this is an arbitrary code. I could use 0s and 1s, I could use 5s and 10s, I could use any two numbers, but 1s and 2s are simple, so I'm using those. Now a quick mention of the scales of measurement. Gender is an excellent example of a nominal scale because the groups are qualitatively and not quantitatively different. So I can change my settings under variable view to reflect that. Under measure I can change it from scale to nominal. I don't have to do this, but I can. Height, on the other hand, is an excellent example of a quantitative difference. So I can leave that right at scale because it's fixed interval differences between scores with a meaningful 0. I think scale is the most appropriate scale of measurement to use for that. So we're almost set to start analyzing different aspects of these numbers, but there's one more thing we can do. Now I'm looking at these 1s and 2s, and I'm having trouble keeping track of which one was male and which was female. What did 1 mean and 2? I can't totally remember. To help me keep that straight, I can create what are called value labels. If I go back to variable view, under the values option, if I click right here, I can tell SPSS what each value means. So I type in a 1, a value of 1 gets a label of female, and click add. Likewise, a value of 2 gets a label of male. I hit add. When I'm ready, I hit OK. Now, if I go back to data view, you'll see I just hit this button up here, and the numbers automatically transform into words. And there's still numbers at heart. If I just turn this value labels button off, they'll turn back to numbers. I can also do it under view and value labels. So there's still numbers in there, but they're showing us what each number means, and I think that's pretty helpful. So now that we have that, let's analyze these data. And one of the most simple things we can do is count up how often things occur. That's called a frequency count. And it seems pretty easy to do by hand, but remember, if you're dealing with large data sets, counting things up by hand is no treat. So let's have SPSS do it for us. So up at the top under Analyze, Analyze is one of the menu options we use most often in SPSS, so it's going to be your good friend. Get accustomed to it. Once we're here, go down to Descriptive Statistics and choose Frequencies. So we're going to see how frequently different things occur. When this window pops up, you'll see all the variables we have on the left, and all the variables we're going to analyze go on the right. And to decide which variables you want to analyze, you can just highlight them and then push this little arrow button to move them over. You can also just grab a hold of it and move it over like that. And when you're ready, I think you can just go ahead and click OK. So I talked about this before in the other videos, but SPSS, the output window isn't exactly pretty, and it produces more than we really want. But we can look around and kind of see what the numbers mean and which ones are most interesting. So starting with this first table here, it tells us how often or how many scores we have in each variable. So it's telling us the n for gender is 10, and for height is 10, telling us we have 10 gender information units and 10 height information units. The missing, where it says 0, that means we don't have any blank cells in those columns. So let's look down at the first table that says gender. This is a little bit more interesting. It tells us for females how many scores do we have that are female. It says 6, okay. And out of the total number of scores, what percentage is that? It's 60. Valid percents, it calculates it differently depending on if you have any missing values. And then cumulative percent, if we had lots of different types of genders in there, it would kind of add them up as we go along. Really, the most interesting part, I think, of this table is right here. 6 females, 4 males, 10 different people total, both male and female. So that's kind of good. We can do the same thing for height, and that's this table right down here. But what it's telling us is, okay, we have one person who's 61 inches tall. We have 2 people who are 62 inches tall, 2 people 68 inches tall. This really isn't all that informative, in my opinion. A better way to convey the gist of how tall our people are might be to calculate the average of their heights. We could maybe even calculate how spread out the height scores are. And these would be measures of central tendency and variability. And I'm going to explain what those are in the next video.